Are you ready to become the balanced leader you are destined to become? Then stay right here. Welcome to today's Balanced Leader, where we empower today's leader to be the best that you can be, both in your professional and personal life. I'm your host, Caroline Baird, and I've explored and believe the intersection of wellness and leadership are key to finding the balance you are craving as a leader. This is the show where we focus on leadership and the importance of maintaining balance in today's fast-paced and constantly changing world. We talk about topics related to leadership, from communication and team building to personal development and finding balance during challenging times. We will also hear from inspiring guests who have achieved success in their fields and have valuable insights to share about their leadership journeys and on what it takes to be a successful leader. But this podcast isn't just about leadership, it's also about wellness too. Taking care of your mind, body, and spirit is essential to becoming a successful leader, and you'll get tips and strategies for living a healthy, balanced life, from managing burnout and improving mental health, to finding ways to reset and reground during a typical day at work so that you can achieve your goals. So whether you're a CEO, an entrepreneur, or just someone looking to improve your leadership skills, this podcast is for you. Are you ready? Well, let's get going. In this episode of today's Balanced Leader, the conversation touches on topics of substance abuse and addiction. If this might be a trigger for you, please proceed with care. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's Balanced Leader. I'm thrilled to have a special guest here today. Stephanie Butler is a dear friend of mine, and I'm fortunate and have the pleasure of an honor of having her presence in my life. Stephanie is not only a registered social worker, but also a life and wellness coach. So her life is quite full, and she has a deep passion for helping others. With over 25 years of experience in mental health field, Stephanie has honed her skills in guiding individuals through challenging life circumstances towards a path of compassion and self-love. She believes that the answers we seek reside within ourselves, and sometimes we just need the support to explore situations from different perspectives, ask the important questions, and explore and challenge our own belief. Stephanie's journey is truly a testament to her unwavering commitment to self-care and spiritual practice, which helps her remain grounded. She values self-compassion and continuously seeks guidance from her own coach, which allows her to create a safe and nurturing space for others to confront their challenges with wholehearted courage. Our conversation today will revolve around some critical topics, including self-compassion, self-love, hitting rock bottom, and seeking help. So if you're living with depression or anxiety, which is at an all-time high, this is definitely the podcast episode that you're going to want to listen to. So Stephanie, it's an honor to have you here to share your insights with us. And I just want to first welcome you to our podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here and amazing to be able to talk with a dear friend on such important topics.
Yes, and Stephanie and I are just coming out of a women's summit that we just, Stephanie hosted it, but had a number of guest speakers, and I'm honored that I was one of the guest speakers there, but speaks to your testament around wanting to always help people. And I just love that about you. And again, so honored to have you in my life. But yeah, let's get into it. I'm so excited for our conversation today because, we could talk for hours. Let's start with maybe sharing a little bit about your journey and what drew you into a career in social service and life coaching.
Yeah, so I am wording wise, I'm a registered social service worker, not social worker. So
Right.
there's a little bit of a difference. I'm more of the coaching and practical kind of work that I do in the mental health field and the health field. So, from a young age, I just was drawn to helping folks. I had worked in an office for a couple of years between high school and going to college. And I was like, well, it taught me I don't want to sit at a desk for very long. I want to be out and about. And so I got into the social service workforce and from there, I thought I only wanted to work with women, and that was going to be my niche, and that was where I was going to start. And I just fell in love with the work. Somehow, through my experiences, I just knew working with people was just, it just came natural to me. Somehow, I just kind of could sense what people were feeling or might have been going through. And I 9 out of 10 times my gut instinct was right. And so that really drew me to working with folks because I seem to understand them and I seem to like kind of say, "Hey, are you doing okay or what's going on?" And then my own personal growth and evolution journey is what kind of guided me to keep in this field. So for me, it started with depression and anxiety. I always just had a low mood and I knew some coping skills. They weren't the healthiest coping skills, but I had figured out how to cope with the anxiety and the depression. And then that kind of stopped working for a while. And so I picked up alcohol and drugs and found myself full blown into addiction and alcoholism. And that went on for quite some time where it worked. I mean, a lot of folks think like, gee, you should just stop the drinking. It's like when I'm not drinking, I'm more depressed, full of anxiety, and more crazy than when I am drinking or drugging because it's self-medicating. It was working for me, right? So you don't really want me to put it down without another solution, right? So I was in my addiction for quite some time, and the last few years of that, I felt like I found hell on earth. It was pretty rock bottom. It was pretty low, and when I use the term rock bottom, I mean a spiritual, emotional rock bottom where I could not look at myself in the mirror for a good year and a half before I got help. And I was quite young in my mind. I was 28 years old when I reached out for help. And through that help, I have really dived deep into the self compassion, self care, self trust, and self love. Like I never knew this existed because when you're riddled with depression, anxiety, and addiction, at least my experience was I wasn't hearing really great inner dialogue. It was telling me how pathetic I was, that I was a scum on the bottom of your shoe, and that I was a deviant. Like all these words came to mind naturally, and that's who I really thought I was. I didn't know I was sick. I didn't know that I had addiction. I didn't like I thought this was all my choice, and I chose this life and it's all my fault.
Stephanie, I was just going to say, I think too, when I've been learning over the years as well, when somebody feels down about themselves, and everybody does at some point in time in their life where they're not happy with themselves, they don't love themselves, they don't have that compassion or give themselves that grace. You can tell yourself, generally speaking, if you're don't have mental health issues, that come on, suck it up, you're just having a down day, let's go do something to pick yourself up. But of course, when you're suffering from depression, mental health issues, anxiety, that doesn't work. And so you become a greater person, or a person you like more, when you are self-medicating.
Yeah.
Right, it's when you are sobering up or you're not on the drugs that you start to self-loathe against yourself, right? So I want people to understand that this is a very distinct difference between the type of negative commentary that you're going to be giving yourself, right? So sorry, yeah, I just wanted to call that out for our listeners, so
Yeah,
please
I
continue.
appreciate that. And I choose the word to use as sober, which means that I choose abstinence. So I've chosen to not use any mood altering substances because I don't know how to use those safely or minimally. If the pill box says take two, I think 25 is better. More is better. So that's what I've come to know, and that works for me. Abstinence works for me. So I will be aging myself and dating myself here. It's 20 plus years later, and I've chosen abstinence for that time, and I've been able to maintain that. Now, so early on when I was abstinent, the doctors were checking in about my depression, and was I really depressed, or was this all alcohol and, Valium ridden, like, because I was taking all these, downers, like maybe that's what was going on. And so I was off medication and, living my life. And about 3.5, 4 years into, being abstinent, I was on the phone with a good friend and my mood was very low. I wasn't feeling very great. I just felt like I was trudging in water, like, you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
Treading water.
Yep.
And so with depression, you can kind of find ways of denial, like, oh, it's not like, you kind of just put it to the side, It's not that bad. And so she asked me a question of like, well, you don't seem like you're ever happy or anything is good that's going on. I said, well, it's not that bad. It's maybe 3 to 3.5 weeks out of the month. And I heard it. I heard that very loudly. I was like, considering there's only 4 weeks in a month and it's 3 to 3.5 that I'm feeling like I want to, just end it. I didn't get suicidal, but I was just like this groundhog day and this feeling of, oh, World War III is going to break out. I didn't care about anything. That's how depression showed up for me. And so that took me on a whole different journey where I was, needing to find a psychiatrist, a doctor that knew concurrent, so knew of addiction and knew of mental health, right? Because not all folks are educated in that area.
Right.
Yeah. And so I found some support through where I went for treatment for my alcoholism and drug addiction. And I had to wait, 6 months before I could be seen. That's kind of not that bad compared to what's going on nowadays. Nowadays, people are waiting years,
Yeah.
like years and a half. And, my family doctor at the time, he was like, Stephanie, you're a mental health worker. You know more than I do. I will prescribe you a medication. He goes, but I don't know if it'll work for you and if it's a good one for you. And then you go find yourself a doctor because I have no one to refer you to.
Wow.
Like that's, and so thank goodness that I am in the field, and so I went back to where I got treatment for my addiction and they connected me with a doctor through them. And I've been with him ever since. And it's been great. And he, doesn't just always assume that it's the depression. Like he's like, what are you doing for your recovery from addiction? You know what I mean? Like he looks at it holistically at all areas. And I love that approach. And so from having my own, I guess, tougher times, right? And having to navigate systems, that just kept fueling the fire for me to want to keep doing that for other people because I know how hard it is to do something like that when you're in a heavy depression, when you're like, the phone feels like 500 pounds, so I know what it feels like. So let me help you lighten the load a little bit. How about you do this? Like you have a meal today and I'll make the phone call to find us a psychiatrist for your care. Or let's, you know what I mean? Like that is the least I can do for somebody else, right? Who's might be going through a similar situation that I was going through. And that's, that what keeps inspiring me is like I have the personal but also the professional education to help people navigate the system. I can help them coach them through whatever their goals are, right? Like, so whether it's maintain their mental health or find a doctor or move to Edmonton or whatever it might be, we can work together. We all need support. I always tell folks it takes a village, right? Not just from birth and that's it until they get to school. No, it's a lifetime, right? I need support and I need a community. I need a village around me because, I still have mental health concerns. My addiction will never go away. That is something that I need to be in recovery from on a daily basis. That's, I need to do certain things. And I think you and I were talking earlier about, Western medicine is fabulous. Like I need to be on a medication. If not, I would be sleeping for 20 hours a day. That's just what I would do. But the medication, like here's my baseline of feeling good and motivated. Without the medication, I'm down here.
Right.
The medication, I'm about here. So to get up to there is, I got some things to do. There's not just this magic little pill. And I think that's what a lot of people think is like, I just take a magic little pill and I'm like, woo, woo, woo.
I'm happy.
No, I'm not. It's a happy pill. I don't feel high from it. I don't feel all these things. What it does for me is it brings me up a little bit closer and I'm not, in the water just trying to stay in one place. I can do what I need to do. So I can, get those 6 to 8 hours of sleep, eating healthy meals that I've cooked myself, home cooked meals, showering every day, exercising on a daily basis. All of these things are so important for my mental health, my physical health, along with the medication, right? And so that was working. And then I needed more. And that's where, to me, it's the rest of the world has taught me, not just the, Western world, but the Eastern and all of the world has taught me different things like mindfulness, meditation. I'm more of a spiritual person in the sense of if I'm not aligned with spirit, God, universe, whatever you want to name it, I'm not doing too well, right?
Right.
And I feel that my own life journey has helped me always along the way. My tribe finds me. So the women and men that I work with when I'm coaching or I'm working corporate as a mental health worker or health worker out there, there is no coincidence that they have been touched by the same things that I've already gone through. I don't always disclose that information or share anything, but I'm like, okay, I know a little something about this, not just theory and education, but a little life lesson as well.
Well, and it gives you credibility to some degree when you're dealing with somebody, especially when they're at their lowest low, right? It's easy for somebody to say, and like I said earlier, it's easier to say, put on that happy face and move forward, but it's not. And so being able to speak from personal experience, and I think that's, the journey that you and I have both fallen in love with, basically, and which is why we want to help other people, because we're like, we understand. I can't prevent you necessarily from going through it, but I'm sure there to pick you up, dust you off, and help you on your journey. Just similar to, like, I think about that one person that you mentioned had asked you, knew that there was something off with you. Sometimes if you don't have that person, you don't think you're worthy of help or support or anything better. And so that compassion, that community really can help to inspire people or make them feel like they matter, that they do have a purpose, especially when you start talking about, the mental health as well as the addiction, because that can be a spiral. So I love that you've got that piece to be able to speak to actual tangible things that have occurred, because you can truly understand what they're going through.
It just kind of speaks to my belief is that we're all here to help one another on some level. And when, I shed this little spacesuit, my human body, and my spirit goes to where it needs to go, I'll then know who I made an impact on or who I helped change the trajectory of their life for like a profound reason. I'm not meant to know it in this lifetime. We don't know. But all I know is that I've been through certain things so that I can help others who are going through similar things and just have some compassion and love for those folks because
Yeah.
I don't think many of us know how to show up for others if we have no clue what they're going through and we can't even imagine it, you know? We can
And
have some
sometimes
empathy.
take a quick detour, right? Because you don't want to have to. And I think that's part of, you and I had that conversation today when I was talking about the Women's Summit. I love to help people, period. That may not mean that I specifically myself can help them, but it may mean that I have somebody like you that I can guide somebody to, right? And that's what this is all about, where Stephanie and I look at how can we make this world a better place for people? Like, what can we do to help anybody at any point in time through some really difficult times? Stephanie, let me ask you a question because we talk about self-compassion and self-love, and I mean, those things can mean so many different things to so many people. Maybe when you think about it from a depression and anxiety lens, and I guess this is kind of twofold. We have a role to play in these conditions to help individuals, but again, we're not the experts. I find a lot of people, especially in my HR world, we're kind of like, so what do I do now? I know this person is struggling. I know they're willing to accept help because they don't know what else to do. Where would you give them guidance, especially with the lens of both sides of your world?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of shame and guilt with mental health concerns because I think it's pretty new in the sense of us talking about it like you and I are talking about right now. Like it's just another topic. But there is a lot of shame and stigma around like I'm not strong enough or I've done something wrong. That's why I have this mental health concern, right? And so you're looking through that lens. It makes it that much harder to ask for help because you feel like I've done this to myself, I shouldn't ask for help. I better figure this out on my own. And I want to tell anyone out there who might be saying that to themselves, like, you can't figure this out on your own because, your mind, the mental health is the issue, the problem, whatever you want to label it as. And you can't fix a problem at the root of the problem. You know what I mean? So if you're the root of your problem, the way that you're thinking, so, my depression looks like overwhelm and I can't think straight, I can't concentrate, short-term memory goes out the window, and I just don't feel anything for anything. So whether it's the worst news in the world or the best news in the world, I'm completely flatlined. And so when you're feeling that way, one, how am I going to be making pretty rational, healthy decisions for myself because I don't care about anything? And so I would encourage folks to either, if they have a close friend, to talk to them and just say, you know what, I don't know what to do next. If you have a family doctor or nurse practitioner, okay, I shared my doctor didn't know much, but we were able to have that conversation and we got to the point where, I was like, oh, I can reach out to treatment, the hospital where I went for my addiction. They will know because the nurses there would know. And so I would have never thought of that on my own
Right.
because I was in it and everything is just heavy and you can't see any, there's a few bit of lights, a little bit of cracks, but you can't see very much. And so I would just say it out loud to someone. I'm not feeling like myself and I'm not sure what to do about it. You
That's
know,
great, great advice. Yeah, because the individual may not be, again, be able to help you with that, but is able to at least guide you to speak to a friend, to speak to a doctor. Like, what do I need to do? How bad is it? Take them to emergency if they have to, depending on how severe it is. Or what are the things, excuse me, that you can work on to support that individual, because we can't fix it for that person, but we can definitely be their call to action, if you will, to get some support. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then I'm going to call out the folks who have good friends who may or may not that they know of have mental health concerns. If you see a friend or a colleague or someone that you see every day at Tim Hortons and they're just not themselves, just be honest and say, "Hey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just, I'm concerned because you don't seem like your jovial self, or you don't, you know what I mean?"
Hmm.
I would rather say something to someone and be wrong and be correct in saying, "I'm fine. Sorry. I was just in my head right at that moment when we talked." Or they might say, "Wow, thank you for noticing." Because I think we chalk it up like, "Oh, they're just having a tough, rough day," or, "Oh, they're having an off day." But you're only seeing them maybe once a week at Tim Hortons, or once or twice a week. But if you're seeing that that person's off, you could start that conversation.
Right. And it's hard, to your point, but I find it generally most people are looking for that human connection or care or purpose in life. So it can be difficult, to your point. Like, you don't want to ask somebody and then find out they're absolutely fine and in thought, but at least you haven't overlooked someone. And again, in the HR world, had heard some really tough stories where I wish I had have, right? And my guidance is always, if your gut or your intuition is telling you something's off, bet you bottom dollar that you're right. So why would you walk away? Because that's now something that you have to process yourself. So it's not easy. When you think about individuals that are suffering from mental health issues in particular, what would you say, when we talked about, like, they've got low self-esteem, they don't feel good about themselves. Is there one thing, like, if somebody is listening right now and is just feeling down, is there something that you could give them as a tool that you would just say, this is something you could do for yourself? Because, of course, we talk a lot about the holistic health, and we talk about energy healing, we talk about meditation, all that. But of course, depending on what frame of mind you're in, that's not going to work. Is there anything other than phoning a friend that you would say you would recommend that somebody do, or have a purpose towards doing in the morning, or something like that?
Yeah, I think for me it's dial it back. I think we tend to kind of have unrealistic expectations of ourselves.
Mm.
And if we're in a low point or not doing fantastic and living with mental health concerns, for me, like, a good day sometimes is I got out of bed and I brushed my teeth and I put some clothes on and maybe I showered. You know what I mean? Like, I need to dial it back to the basics in the sense of, you know what? Today I'm going to do A, B, and C. And that is get enough sleep. I'm going to eat nutritiously as best as I can today. Try to get at least 3 meals. I may try, right? And then I need to socialize. I need to have that community. So I find that for me, when things get heavy or overwhelming and my mood is low or my anxiety is really high, I need to go back to the basics of
Right.
self-care. And so I find if I can just, you know what I mean, like, do a little bit better than I did the day before, then I'm moving in the right direction. And
Right.
it doesn't have to be these big things like I have to meditate for an hour every morning and no, it's the tiny little changes. Like, if I didn't eat the day before because I have no appetite, I'm going to get a little bit of soup and maybe a smoothie in me,
Right.
you know? And that's, like, little changes, little shifts. And if I haven't told anybody, again, I tell on myself all the time. And it's just a matter of time before somebody in my network is going to go, what's going on? Like you don't seem yourself. Like I've got enough eyes on me that I'm gonna, someone's gonna recognize it,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's the isolation that is the number one offender when it comes to mental health. We want to isolate.
Yes. Yes. And because it's easier to hide.
Yeah.
And it's funny, as you were saying that, I had to pull up real quickly. I'm a big person that speaks a lot about Maslow's hierarchy. And, if you think about it, when you talk about the bare needs, the very basic needs of what we want, right? Our nutrition, water, air, sleep, shelter. Those are the things that are most critical to us. And so I love that of taking it back to the basic needs of what it is that you truly must have. The rest of it, we'll figure it out another day or another time. But these are the needs for survival to be able to move through the day.
Absolutely. Because if I'm not physically taking care of myself and mentally, and I'm trying to push through, pull up your bootstraps and keep going that North American way, I'm going to physically do some damage that I may not be able to come back from. I may do some mental health damage that I may not be able to fully come back from.
Yes.
And so we need to keep to the basics, part of harm reduction in the sense of let us not do more harm to ourselves when we're not doing well. Let's go to the basic care and our basic needs so that our body is being nourished. We're physically moving, we're socializing, we're getting enough water, we're not, you know what I mean? Like it sounds very easy and basic, but if you're neglecting yourself for weeks on end, a lot of damage can be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. To your point, maybe just getting out of bed is all that you can do that day.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And I would say that I personally feel that today's society, we've definitely got more pressures and expectations on us than ever before. And so I think sometimes we forget. I don't think it's that we don't want to, most people, but I think it's sometimes we forget to check in on those that may seem in need at the time, just because there's so much going on. And I think that's where I'd love you to talk a little bit, if you don't mind, Stephanie, about spirituality. And I've not gone through a number of things like you've gone through, but even through my journey of separation, divorce, grief, all sorts of things that way, having an illness, spirituality really came up big and strong for me. And I think there's a difference between religion and spirituality, right? And so I call myself spiritual, not religious. And so would love to maybe have you explain to us why spirituality is so important to somebody that is dealing with mental health or addiction issues.
Yeah, I use the term spirituality as well because I don't necessarily practice or go religiously to a certain like church or temple or anything like that. So for me, spirituality gave me a purpose. For me, I believe that I'm here to help others and to serve others. And pretty much any religion or spirituality is going to tell you that that's the purpose to life. And I didn't have much of that belief when I was, out there drinking and drugging. And I really was raised more atheist than anything. To basically, I was taught if you want something done right, kid, do it yourself. Don't depend on anyone else.
Okay. Yeah.
That was my religion. And so that I was raised in. And so when I kind of came to and found myself on my journey of over 20 years ago, when I chose abstinence to be sober, a lot of things came up for me, like, what do I want to do with my life? I like helping people, but like I'm getting paid at the same time. So it didn't feel very, spiritual. I need to connect with spirit, universe, God, whatever word you want to put in there, in the sense of through prayer and meditation. That is a big, big component for myself. I believe that, we're all made of energy in the sense of we're all made of God. And we're here to keep waking up in the sense of I went through a lot of things in my life, a lot of dark places, but I kept waking up to the fact that I'm here having a spiritual, like I'm a spiritual being having a human experience is my belief. And so I need to remember that my spirit is here to help others. And it might just be one other spirit that I'm here to help,
Yeah.
but it's my job to show up every day and be available and to come from a place of kindness and love to help others. And flash forward till 192 and finally pass away. I don't know what I'm passing, right? So I just say 192.
I love that.
I got a
192.
ways
Love it.
to go.
Wish that for you.
Yeah, whatever. But whenever I leave this, this human body, I'll then know what was my purpose here fully as to who was that person. I don't know. And so I really believe that that is what keeps me going, in the sense of I want to be the best version of me so that I can help more people, so that I can be out of ego and be out of my mind. If I'm just thinking about me, 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 me all the time, I'm not too helpful. I'm not going to see the signs that the universe is giving me and the people walking into my life saying things like, gee, I really feel horrible today and overwhelmed. And I'll just be like, yeah, it's a rough one and keep moving. No, this person was asking for help, just not directly. I'm going to miss all the signs. And so it's my job to keep working with spirit to be looking out for those signs and those situations and those people that are being put into my life. And so it gives me purpose, my spirituality. It gives me a sense of wholeness. I feel connected all the time. Like self-compassion, we touched on a little bit, but like self-compassion, the component of that is common humanity.
Yes.
And so I have a connectedness, like, yes, I'm a human being. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to mess up, but I will learn from it, hopefully, and grow. And the next time it won't be such a big mistake.
Yeah. We just
It's,
talked about that.
yeah, we try to do that. But with spirituality, it gives me a different connectedness. Like we're all made of the same thing. Every living, breathing thing. We're all energy, and we're all one, really, if you look at it. And that to me is just comforting. I think it's beautiful, and I'm just so amazed and blessed to be part of that. And so that feeds my soul, and it keeps me energized and excited to help others. And there's a little bit of selfishness when it comes to helping others, because it comes back tenfold. You know what I mean? Like when you can help somebody out, and like I mean really help them out, and wow, what an amazing feeling that is, right?
I love that. I absolutely agree with you. I think those are the ways that you can learn to love yourself more, which means you can then give more, love yourself more. And I just love the ability to support somebody in a way that you wouldn't even think twice about, right? It's just whether it's somebody you know or somebody you've just met, for you to resonate with somebody and to be able to make that connection and support is beyond words. And I think that's why we don't find out what our purpose is until we leave I call it our vessel, and we move on. Because if we found out ahead of time what our purpose was, we'd probably go check done and we'd be finished. So I think that's why we're never told. You just
Did
keep
that
doing
last
that.
Thursday. I don't have anything else to do now.
That's right. I always see it as when you were talking about that. I always have this image. I don't know if you've seen The Lion King, the monkey Rafiki. He's got this stick in his hand. Yeah, his staff. And every time when something happens, I feel like Rafiki just keeps hitting me over the head going, no, you didn't get it right. Let's try again. No, you didn't get it right. Let's try again. All in humor. And I always see him and I start to laugh and go, okay, let's try, because I'll only learn by trying. Well, what would you say, Stephanie, like if we think about misconceptions, and I know people say, yes, we are more aware of mental health than ever before, but I think we've got such a long, long, long way to go still. there's still that stigma, there's still that nervousness for people to come forward. What would you say, in your experience, has been some of the most common misconceptions around mental health and addiction that you'd like our listeners to be aware about?
Well, I think the number one, I think it's more old school generations. When you say mental health, they think developmental.
Mm,
And just because somebody might have schizophrenia or depression or addiction doesn't mean that their intellectual capacity is lower than your average person. And so that's a big misconception that's out there. I think people mix up because it's your brain that you're also slow on the uptake or what however you want to say that. That's just not true. Another huge misconception is that if you just had enough willpower, you would stop the drinking or the drugging. And why that is so not true is not everybody who drank like me and drugged like me, because I hung out with a lot of people and partied for a long time. All of those people they don't have addiction. They stopped, slowed down, and grew up. And I crossed a fine line where addiction, like, so I drank or did drugs for the effect of it because it affects me differently. So
mm,
when I pick up alcohol or cocaine or whatever it is, most people who don't have an addiction say, "Oh, I'm really feeling that. I better slow down." Because they like the way they feel already. I don't like being in my own skin. When I use, so alcohol or cocaine, it alters the way that I feel. And I like that because I don't want to feel the way I was. Right. And so why wouldn't I keep doing that? Because it works for me. It's self-medicating. It helps me until it stops helping me. And then we see that's all we talk about is when it stops working. And so then my behaviors are not that great. People end up, doing criminal activity because they will do anything to get their next drink or drug,
right,
because that's the only mechanism that I knew how to change the way I was feeling because I felt so horrible all the time.
right,
And it's this overwhelming feeling of shame, guilt, embarrassment, just self-disgust, self-loathing. And when if I just pick up that bottle and chug it, those feelings all go away, why wouldn't I?
sure. Because now
And
you're
so,
used to those feelings. Yeah.
yeah, so when I was, young and picked up the alcohol, just like all of you who've probably picked up some alcohol thinking, yeah, I'm 19, I can legally drink now. You might want a little glass of wine with your dinner. My mind, I've never wanted a glass of wine with dinner. That just seems preposterous. Like, why would you only have one glass of wine? Like, no. So I'm wired differently. And that shows me the way I think, the way I imbibe is so different. And so I didn't choose to be an addict, just like folks who drink and can put it down will never really understand why I can't just put it down. It's not my willpower. It's really doing a lot for me.
Right.
Yeah.
What about individuals, Stephanie, that have mental health issues, maybe aren't quite there yet? So they may be drinking, they may be doing drugs, but not as severe, I'm going to call it. But there are people that are struggling day to day, because there's a difference between having a tough day and having a mental health issue. And people that have a mental health issue generally at some point realize that they have one.
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot of those individuals feel that because they're not that bad, they don't need help?
Yeah, it's mental health. I would say a high percentage of mental health is denial. So the mental health, so any mental health like that you look at, it tells your brain is telling you like they're so wrong. I know 101 people have told me today that it looks like you're really depressed and I'm concerned for your health. I'll be like, they're overreacting.
Mhm.
I know I'm okay. I got this. I'll be okay. I'll figure it out. Because everything in my brain for the mental health, the depression, it's in denial. It doesn't want to have the mental illness. And so it's this inner battle. It's like you're talking to two different, people in your own head. And so it took that moment of like, it's only 3.5 weeks out of the month that I feel like death. Okay, maybe that's a little bad, but that was 4.5 years I was living like that.
Mhm.
And part of me thought, maybe I'm just not doing a great job at being in recovery from my addiction. No, I was in denial of my depression and anxiety. And most of us are. Schizophrenia, same thing. It's going to tell you, you're not crazy.
Right.
They're crazy. I don't like that term, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
so that's also a big component of mental health is the denial piece. And addiction, absolutely. I mean, if I'm crossed that line and then I've crossed the line again with my addiction where I'm now homeless, I'm
Mhm.
living in a dumpster, I'm stealing food from other backs of alleys and streets to get my meals. I'm, doing things that I would never do normally because I'm a law-abiding citizen,
Right.
and I can somehow justify and rationalize my behavior. There's something going on. That's denial, full denial, and that's what mental health shows up looking like. And so a lot of the time, people don't get the help that they need because they're so unwell that they're not seeing how unwell they are.
Right. And it's interesting because that was my next question was going to be, so, what would be the one step for listeners, whether they have a loved one that is going through that or they themselves are going through it, what you would do. But to your point, sometimes you don't even wish to acknowledge the fact that that's happening. So hence, then you're not going to seek out support and help from anyone.
No, it's again, especially in North America, we're taught to deal with it on your own. Don't burden anyone, right? You figure that out on your own and just push through. Yeah, you're having a crappy life right now, but you just got to keep going. And as you say it, it's this somehow you've rationalized that this is the lot in life that I have. Oh well, not knowing there is help for you.
Right.
And so if you're feeling completely overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you're drowning, if you feel like you just don't give a crap about anything, these are all major signs of depression, right? And depression and anxiety, they're best friends. So you can have an anxiety
Mhm.
disorder, so you don't want to be out and about around people. You have little agoraphobia, which means you want to stay in the house. You don't want to go out because that's too overwhelming, the feelings. You're also going to have symptoms of depression along with that as well. And if you have depression, the odds are you're going to have symptoms of anxiety. Go hand in hand. And so if any of this is sounding familiar to you, have a conversation with someone that you trust. Say it out loud, because thank God I had that friend in my life, because I could say it out loud. And when you hear it out loud, you can hear just how, for me, it was preposterous. I was like, oh my gosh, can't believe I've been putting up with this for so long. It's that denial, and that there's a bit of fear of, oh my gosh, if I say this, then it's true.
Or that I'll be labeled forever.
I'll
Yeah.
be stigmatized, I'll be labeled, nothing will change. This is, I can't do anything about it. But you can. There are options out there for you. There are ways, like the medication, you don't always need to take medication. There's other things out there that can help you. And so I just strongly suggest just start having that conversation with somebody. If you're listening to this, give it to someone to listen to first and then say, "Hey, what did you think about that?" And say, "Hey, I kind of related to what was being said," you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And I know a lot of people don't have doctors nowadays. And I'll call out just from my HR worlds of there are people you can talk to. So if your company doesn't have an employee assistance program that can get you counseling or support that way, there's so many places you can go. I heard somebody once say, well, just walk into emergency and tell them you need help. I mean, that's not ideal, but certainly that is better than nothing. But where would you say, Stephanie, you would guide somebody if they didn't have a family practitioner? Could they pick up the phone or look online somewhere? Because I know the government offers programs and a lot of them are free now too. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So there's the Canadian Mental Health Association, CMHA, not CAMH, which is downtown Toronto, CMHA, Canadian Mental Health Association. Every area across Canada has an office. You can self-refer. You don't need a doctor to refer. So you can literally go on their website and fill out some information and someone will call you. And then what that does is connect you with someone like myself who works as a community, mental health worker that would help work with you to kind of coach you through what things can we do next, right? And then also they would have psychiatrists that you can consult with to see if there is a diagnosis, right?
right,
I know it's scary to get a diagnosis, but until we know what's wrong, we don't know how to help. We need
right,
to have a little bit of a label to know, hey, oh, you're bipolar type 1. This is what will really help you. This could help you, And with CMHA, they're going to know other agencies as well and support groups and stuff like that to help you. With addiction, CMHA does that as well, but I always refer people to the RAM, RAM,
mhm,
Rapid Access something something. I always mix up. My world is full of acronyms and I mix them all up. But the RAM, so RAM clinic, they're all over as well. Find the one that's closest to you. You can get group counseling, you can get one-on-one counseling if you feel like you might be misusing or overusing alcohol or drugs. Absolutely.
that's wonderful. Thanks, Stephanie. Because I'm going to make sure I put those links in and as part of the note so that people have access to them. It may not be the appropriate location to your comment, right? Like you could have it in your area, but at least it's a starting point where you know what it is that you need to type into to start to get support. And loved ones too. I love that I call out of if you feel a loved one or someone you care about is possibly going through something like this, just have them listen to the podcast and say, hey, did that resonate? Is there anything I can do to support you, help you so that you can start to feel better? Because I think, especially post COVID, there were people that not always, I shouldn't say that. There have been people that had mental health and it was identified pre COVID, but I think COVID, people that were probably on that cusp that didn't think they had a
Yeah.
problem, COVID made it a lot worse. And so now you've seen that explosion where people don't want to go back to work, things like that, right? That it almost made it flare, if you will, where now they're needing support too. So it doesn't hurt to ask for support, even if you need it in the short term and you are able to develop those coping skills that you need to feel better about yourself and have that self-love, self-trust, self-compassion. But in the meantime, give yourself some grace. We're all going through some form of a journey, and we just don't know what that may look like for some of us, right? So I love that. Stephanie, any last words? I do have my last question for you, but any last words that you want to share that I didn't think to ask you about?
I just think that we don't talk so much about mental health, and let's just try to normalize it a little bit more. And if this podcast, you know, made you feel uncomfortable, whatever, good, because this is going to let you know, like, hey, I need to talk more about this subject, or I might need to educate myself a little bit more about this because I'm feeling uncomfortable on this topic. And if you felt completely comfortable, then I again implore you to talk to people about it. Bring it up at the dinner table. Say, "Hey, did you hear about so and so?" or blah blah. How, like, it's 1 out of 3, or maybe it's 3.5 people have a mental health concern in Canada. Okay, so it's not rare. It's very common. And
Yes.
a lot of the time, we just don't know what it is. We don't know how to label it. We don't know because we haven't asked for the help, because God forbid I ask for the help when I
Correct.
need it.
Yes.
So try to normalize it and have those conversations, more so.
I
Yeah.
don't disagree. I have been speaking to it and I love that we're starting to, but like I said, I think we've got a long, long way in this world to go to really understand it and get the help that people need, because there's not even enough help out there necessarily. But again, too, if anybody has any specific questions, there's definitely places that you can go to. And again, I'll put them in the notes. But Stephanie, last question. And I always ask every guest this. So, what would you say is the biggest thing you've learned throughout your journey that you could share with our listeners? And I'm sure we've talked a lot about it today, but it could be a valuable lesson, a transformative experience, or a book that had a profound impact on your professional growth and where you are today.
I think for me, it's been more of a life lesson that nothing is on my timeline. It's on the divine timeline. Meaning, I have certain aspirations, goals, dreams in my life. Absolutely. Places that I want to get to. And I need to still show up and do the work. But it's going to unfold how it is meant to unfold. And it doesn't, most of the time, look the way that I want it to unfold. And I think I'm a bit of a late bloomer in life, and I've come to accept that. So it's going to come a little later than yesterday, in my world. At least that's what I've experienced. And so for me, the big lesson is I'm still going to show up knowing that these dreams are on their way to me. I just am going to live curiously to find out, when is it going to land? When is it going to be here? And I wonder what it's really going to look like, because it's never how I think it's going to look. And it keeps things interesting though, right? It keeps me on my toes, and I'm okay with that. It took a long time for me to get here, to be comfortable with that, because I like to know what's coming. I like to know what things are going to look like. But yeah, I would have to
The
say that.
universe has something different in plan. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. And we just talked about that, right? Where I said, I foresee me in theory in the old days, I'd be coming up to retirement, but I just see this as a new part of my life that I hope I get to do until my last breath and make a difference in this world. And I know you feel the same way. So that's phenomenal. And I also want to call out that Stephanie on Amazon.ca, and I'm going to put this in the link too, has an amazing journal. It's her magical weekly manifesting journal, which includes setting intentions. I have to tell you, I took a look at it, like, because you can look at the have a quick read view kind of piece, and I looked at it, and it was done in a way that I've never seen done before, and I loved how you broke it up, so simplistic, but yet having an intention every day that meets your objective was just profound. And I'll leave it at that so people will go online and check it out. But it's actually Stephanie's own creation. And so It was created, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but it was created as a result of your own personal journey. And so, because of what you've been through, you thought you would create this beautiful journal that would help other people as well. And so, to help other people manifest their own personal growth and evolution, I'll say. So I'll make sure to include that as well. But I loved it. I was checking it out.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I'll leave links in the notes so that you've got the information. You are able to get support if you so need, or for somebody you love. But Stephanie, as always, I so enjoy our conversations. Well, I mean, we could probably have them every day, but loved our time together. And thank you so much for your attempt in making that stigma of mental health go away, so that mental health and addiction is something that we can talk about without fear of any type of consequence to someone's life, because really at the end of the day, everybody has something. We just need to be able to support everybody no matter what it is that they're going through. So thank you so much for being open, honest, and super transparent about your journey. And I know it's a hot topic.
Thank you. And thank you for creating such a safe place for me to be able to talk about this.
Of course, anytime. And you're welcome back anytime. Well, I hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, or like it. And feel free to share this episode with anyone you feel may need it. We're so excited to participate and make everyone's life a better place. So thank you very much for listening, and everyone have a great day. That's all for this episode of Today's Balanced Leader. I hope you've enjoyed the discussion on wellness and leadership, and that you took away some valuable insights and strategies to help you become a better leader in your own life. Please leave a rating and review. I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss the next one, as we continue our exploration of what it means to live life as today's leader. In the meantime, take care of yourself, and remember that true leadership starts with taking care of your own well-being. One deep breath in and one deep breath out. Keep striving for excellence and inspiring others to do the same. And finally, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time on Today's Balanced Leader.